Let's get started. Everybody can if you have something to say right now, why raise your hand and we'll recognize you. And when our speakers start, we will put you on mute as we've done in the past. Everybody hear me properly? Okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Good, good. Since we met last time, where we had 136 members, we're now up to 144 members, and we're very excited about the fact that our chapter continues to expand. We're also excited that SABR has granted us the opportunity to pass out free memberships to students. And we are going to, working with Joe Thompson and Jimmy Dish at Rice, we are going to come up with a system to get at least 2 young people, and maybe more, to sign up to join our chapter. And we think that's very healthy. That, as we get older as a group, we need to bring in some young blood. I did attend by Zoom the National SABR meeting last Saturday, and their numbers are up to 7,800. First time they've had an increase in membership in some time, and they expect to get to 7,900 sometime in the middle of the summer. So that's good news for SABR that they are growing and doing well. And apparently the money's working out fairly well too, even without the convention. So that is good news. Today we're fortunate to have 3 folks who are with us who are going to be visiting with us. Our first up will be E.B. Firstman, who has made presentations to other SABR chapters. I'm pretty sure I've met her at SABR conventions in the past, and we're very happy to have her with us. And Scott, if you want to fill in on the details. Scott's muted.
Hey, Scott.
I don't have much else to add, except I saw DB, or heard, I guess saw and heard him at the Baltimore chapter, which I'm also a member. And as we're talking about, everyone can be members of multiple chapters if anybody else is interested. So I've been listening to theirs for a bit. They have a nice chapter, and DB talked about his new book, which deals with given names of major league players that are kind of odd, and they're not nicknames given to them after their playing days, but actually given to them by their parents. So it's an interesting focus for the topic, and I'll just stand aside and let them go. DB?
Okay, Joe, if you mute everybody but DB, that'd be good. But she needs to be unmuted. There you go.
Good.
You're on.
Okay. Hi. A little bit about me first. Born and raised in Jackson Heights, Queens, 10 minutes from Shea Stadium. My parents divorced when I was 2, and my dad would come over and plop himself on the couch on the weekend and turn on the TV and watch the Yankee games. And I quickly learned that if I was going to relate to my dad, it was going to be through baseball. Now, my dad would often take me out to the Yankee games at Yankee Stadium, where we would enjoy a 75-minute subway ride from Queens out to the Bronx. But I only lived 10 minutes away from Shea Stadium. And I once asked him, like, Dad, we're 10 minutes away from Shea Stadium. Why can't we go see the Mets? And he looked at me like I had 3 heads. I went to St. John's University. I studied athletic administration. I wanted to get into the business side of sports and work in an MLB front office, but it didn't quite work out that way. Instead, I became a career civil servant for the city of New York, but I never lost my love for baseball. the history, the athleticism, the numbers, and I joined SABR in the mid to late 1980s. I started blogging on MLB.com in 2004. Back then, you had to pay them for the privilege of putting your blog on their site. My blog was called Diamonds Are for Humor, and it was funny takes on what was going on in the game, photo captions, statistical quirks, and things like that. I also contributed to a Yankee-centric site called Bronx Banter. I did daily news aggregations, game recaps, and bomber-related statistical quirks. I also wrote for a site called Baseball Toaster. Again, quirky baseball stats and some wordplay regarding player names. In 2011, I ditched all of my other writing assignments and started up my blog, Value Over Replacement Grit, otherwise known as The Vorg, which was like Diamonds for Humor, but I branched out to include things like baseball book reviews, song parodies. Hello? Hello?
I hear you.
Okay, we lost the screen for a moment there.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, we're back. It was with the Vorg that I first started getting interested in baseball player names and the etymologies of those names. I was also interested in the etymology and origin of regular words, so this seemed like a logical next step. I started doing a regular feature on my blog where I presented the etymology of player birth names, first, middle, and last, along with a baseball bio and trivia regarding the player. I wasn't looking to just have a chuckle about the name, but I was also looking for something more studious or encyclopedic. After about a year of doing one or two of these per month, I thought it might be a good idea for a book. I reached out to John Thorne to ask his opinion of my idea. He liked it, and to see if he had any publishing contacts for me. He gave me a couple of small baseball niche publishing businesses, and it dashed off a couple of book proposals, and the responses back were all the same. We love the concept, we just don't think it'll sell. So I stashed the book idea away, and I took on other writing assignments when the opportunities presented themselves. For a while, I did game recaps and statistical analysis articles for ESPN's Sweet Spot baseball blog. I also provided articles for the Hardball Times, Baseball Prospectus, and the Village Voice. In the fall of 2017, Cecilia Tan noted my affinity for tracking the 3 true outcomes on Twitter and suggested that the topic might be good for a history of article for the SABR Baseball Research Journal. A few weeks of research and writing and 45 endnotes later, my article appeared in the spring 2018 BRJ. I presented my findings at the January 2018 Casey Stengel Chapter meeting in New York, and then presented a poster version of my findings at that summer's National Convention in Pittsburgh, where it won the prize for top poster presentation. So emboldened by the BRJ article and the reception to the poster, I was itching to do something different in terms of my baseball writing. The blog was fine, but I wanted a new challenge. I mentioned this to a few friends, and John Thorne suggested me to a publisher at Skyhorse Publishing, looking to do a book on the history of the Subway series. I drew up another book proposal, and we started talking about terms, but in the end, I couldn't commit to 65,000 words in a year's time with interviews and photos when I already had a full-time job. Still, I started to warm to the idea of writing a book, but it would have to be on my own timeline, something I could break into workable segments that I could tackle piecemeal. I started working on a book that would have given a layman's introduction to new baseball stats, but soon realized that someone was already working on that very same topic and they had a stronger math and stats background than I did. Then it hit me. Why not resurrect the Memorable Names Profiles book project and this time publish it myself? After all, the world of self-publishing has really opened up in the last 6 years since I originally thought of the project. I could take my time, profile 100 or so names, and each profile could be its own little chapter to tackle. It didn't feel as daunting as detailing the history of the Subway series. Then I needed to decide which names to profile. I had about a dozen already in the can from my blog. I wanted to snazz them up and lengthen them a bit for the book. The balance of the names would come from my looking through all 18,000 names in the Lawman Baseball database. I went through them all, looking for ones that met one of 4 criteria. 1, they were alliterative or rhyming, such as Scipio Spinks or Greg Leg. 2, they sounded naughty, like Johnny Dickshot or Pete Lecoq. 3, they were fun to say, the melodious ones like Shigetoshi Hasagawa or Van Lingelmungo. And 4, everything else, or the ones where I couldn't figure out what his parents were thinking. To make sure I wasn't overlooking someone, I then went through Bruce Brown's list of double unique names, because that's a treasure trove of obscure and rare names. Once I had a preliminary list of names to consider, I had to go through each one and see what, if anything, was written about them in various sources. I bought and consulted just about every baseball biographical profile encyclopedia available from McFarland or similar publishers. I also availed myself of the wonderful SABR Baseball Bio Project profiles. I also had to see if I could find the etymology of the players' given first, middle, and last names. For that, I bought and consulted a 3-volume set entitled The Dictionary of American Family Names. At this point, I should also mention that I got subscriptions to Ancestry.com, newspapers.com, to help in the name etymologies and biographical profiling. If I couldn't find anything substantial biographically on the player, or his name etymology was very sketchy, I dropped him from consideration for the book. Out of an initial list of about 250 possibilities, I settled on my final 100 and went to work. I first reworked and expanded the profiles I produced from my blog. Guys like Billy Joe Robideau, Doug Goosh, and Cal McClish got a second look. Here I'll point out what each player profile looks like. Each profile has the following. 1, general demographic information, the name they played under, their full name at birth, the date of their birth and death, the years they were active in the majors, the positions they played, etc. 2, pronunciation of any troublesome parts of their names. For example, it's J.J. Poots, not Putz, and it's Sean Figgins, not Chone Figgins. 3, the etymology and definition of each part of their given name. For example, Doug Goosh's last name is the Polish word for nail, which is a good word for someone who was a catcher by trade. 4, a baseball biography, basically how they made it to the majors and what they did while they were there. 5, best day, a recap of their great day, of a great day in their major league career. 6, the wonder of his name, why his name is memorable to us, or me. 7, not to be confused with, names that sound and or look like the player's name. So for example, you don't get catcher John J. So mixed up with outfielder John J., pitcher J. So, or outfielder J. Johnstone. 8, fun anagrams. Just because I can. Anagrams of the given names. For example, there was a Texas Rangers pitcher in 2008-9 named Warner Madrigal. He wasn't that good a reliever, so the anagram of his name is quite apt, that being marginal reward. And finally, 9, ephemera, factoids, tidbits, trivia about the player, details regarding their parents, their family, and their life after baseball. So let's give you some examples of what you'll learn in the book. First, we have Orville Overall. a pitcher for the Cubs from 1906 to 1910 and 1913. His nickname was Big Groundhog. With his huge frame, he was 6'2" and 214 pounds, and that was big compared to others of that era. And also, he was called Big Groundhog because of his February 2nd birthday. The name Orville is an Old English derivation meaning spear strong. Next, we have the previously mentioned Scipio Spinks, who was a pitcher for the Astros and Cardinals from 1969 to 1973. Scipio is Latin, meaning staff or walking stick. Scipio Spinks is named after the great Roman general Scipio Africanus the Elder, who defeated Hannibal during the Second Punic War. We mentioned Pete Lecoq earlier. He was an outfielder for the Cubs and Royals from 1972 to 1980. Now, most people know that Pete Lecoq's father was Hollywood Squares host Peter Marshall. But did you know that on September 3rd, 1975, during what would turn out to be the last game of Bob Gibson's career, Lecoq blasted the only grand slam of his career deep to right field off of Gibson. Before he left the clubhouse that day, Gibson said, quote, "When I give up a grand slam to Pete Lecoq, I knew it was time to quit." Now, some names don't have a reference book etymology. For example, Drungo Hazelwood was a hot prospect for the Orioles in the early 1980s. Cal Ripken raved about Hazelwood's strength and tools. With regard to the name Drungo, the story is that just prior to his being born, and he would end up being the second youngest of 10 children, his mother told his 8 older siblings that whichever one of them won a foot race to the hospital would get to name the new baby. Her son Aubrey was the victor and named his new brother after the surname of a friend. Lastings Millage was a top prospect for the Mets in the early 2000s. He got his first name because his parents swore he'd be their last child, hence Lastings. When I had trouble researching the etymology of a player's name, I often wrote to them explaining my project and enclosing a self-addressed stamped envelope for a reply, along with my email address. One such case involved the origin of the first name of Larvell Blanks, a middle infielder for the Braves and other teams in the 1970s. Using a list of baseball player addresses I bought from a fellow who maintains such lists for all major sports, I wrote to Blanks in March of 2019. 7.5 months later, I received a self-addressed stamped envelope back. In the envelope, there was no note detailing the origin of his first name. However, there was an autographed card of him. I was amused, but the writer and researcher in me was disappointed. While I was researching and writing the book, I started to recruit my team. I needed someone to write the foreword. Fortunately, I was friendly with Jason Stark, who I had known on a useless information research basis for over a decade. Stark comes to me whenever he needs help figuring out if, for example, we've ever had a shorter surnamed pitching matchup than Dylan G and Cliff Lee. The answer is no. Jason was happy to provide the foreword, but I had to wait until after the 2019 World Series for him to get a chance to A, read my advanced copy, and B, write the foreword. Even though it probably was going to be stocked in brick and mortar bookstores, I wanted the back cover to have a nice blurb. For that, I called on John Thorne, who graciously obliged with his usual elegant text. The idea for the cover itself came to me pretty quickly. I knew I wanted to play off the book title with a Hall of Fame type building entrance and players I'd written about entering the building. Unfortunately, my gift for words doesn't extend to the other arts. So I put a call out on Facebook and Twitter for a cover illustrator. I eventually heard from a UK-based illustrator named Tim Godden. Though he lived in Devon, UK, he was a big American baseball fan, and some of his drawings and artwork were of current and former players. I was enamored of his artistic style. It was slightly cartoonish, but not overly so. It reminded me of the old Adventures of Tintin drawings. That's the feeling I wanted to express in the book. It was a humorous book, a humorous look at the names, but also had a more serious reference type feel to it. Tim's work struck just the right mix between the two. The book layout and design fell to a friend of mine from the tournament Scrabble scene. Yes, I play in Scrabble tournaments. And the participants there are just as memorable as those at SABR conventions, just with bigger vocabularies and half the average age. Anyhow, Chris Patrick Morgan is a San Francisco-based book designer and ardent Giants fan, and he volunteered his services in exchange for 3 signed books. As for the photos, Andrew Aronstein of TCMA Sports Cards graciously gave me permission to use selected card images for some of the players. Other photos I got from the public domain on the Library of Congress website. Finally, I bought the rights to use some photos of older players from the Baseball Hall of Fame itself. So that about wraps up my story of how the Hall of Fame came to be and what it's about. You can find it on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, or order online from your local indie bookstore. And with that, I'll take any questions that you may have. Okay. Unmute. You have questions?
I got one. I have
Okay.
one. You may have mentioned this, but I didn't catch it. From the time you actually did start, because you said you were kind of pressed with an original possible deadline because of the length. How long did it actually take you?
It took me a good 8 or 9 months of writing pretty much every day, and then another 5 to 6 months of getting the forward and the artwork and the photos all together. So it was a good solid year to year and a quarter between the beginning of the book and getting it out to the public.
Well, I guess you're talking about the writing, but that's also including the researching, which took you an awful lot of time, probably more than the actual writing, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was fortunate in that I did have some resources available to me online. Like I said, the Baseball Bio Project was extremely helpful because some of these players really didn't have careers. They had a cup of coffee, and there was no book written about most of these players. But yet, you go to the Baseball Bio Project, there's 5,000 profiles out there. That's that's more than 1/4 of everybody who's ever laced them up and gone on the field. And then, the work of like David Nemec, his baseball profiles from the late 19th century and early 20th century. So I had some ready resources. And then when I went beyond that, I went to something like newspapers.com or ancestry.com to do some research. And, some of the players' profiles, there wasn't much to say about them just because, like I said, their careers are very short and there's not a lot of online information. And I wasn't going to start like making a trip up to Cooperstown or things like that. I did a lot of work out of my house.
That's the most efficient and less expensive way to do that sort of thing. And fortunately,
Yes.
these days, you can do it with all the sources that are available.
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
Anagrams I found fascinating. How many are in your book, and how long did it take you to say, oh, there's an anagram for this guy, there's not one for this guy? And
Okay.
while you're on that subject, Scipio Spinks is a member of our chapter. Do you have an anagram for him?
Yes, I do. I don't know. I don't remember it offhand. I could get a copy of my book and look it up, but I will tell you that I am not. I will give up my trade secret. I have a software program that generates anagrams based on the input that you give it. So if you put in Scipio Spinks and you say, I want it to be a male gender, about sports or about politics, or I want vulgar words or I don't want vulgar words. It'll spit out sentences or at least phrases that kind of make sense from an English standpoint. But I can't take credit for all of that creativity.
I had a question. I came in
Sure.
just a couple of minutes late. I don't know if you talked about if you've done both traditional and self-publishing, but I wanted to get your comments on that. I've done both myself, and especially if anybody here maybe wants to jump into that realm, if you had any pieces of advice, especially for those who want to self-publish.
My experience with trying to get this to a publisher, and I knew it was a niche interest. I knew that it was a subtopic within baseball, and it wasn't going to be a New York Times bestseller. It was going to appeal to a certain section or a certain sector of baseball fans. And so I could take it to McFarland. I could take it to the University of Nebraska Press. But I did that. I did that 6 years ago, before the explosion in self-publishing, took place. And like I said, they love, the editors, they love the idea from a personal standpoint, but from a bottom line dollars and cents standpoint, they didn't think the book was going to sell. So really my desire to write a book was a passion project of mine. I wanted to see if I could really go from the germ of an idea of a book to get it out and research it and write it and, get it published, through a print on demand service. I used Ingram Spark, which does print on demand and will distribute through Amazon and Barnes & Noble and independent bookstores. So, and I also sell a ton of copies on my own. I will sell directly from my house. If you want an autographed copy, we can certainly make arrangements for that. But I knew that this was not going to be something that was, HarperCollins, a major publisher. I knew that this was a niche idea, but I believed in the idea, and I believed that somebody out there would appreciate it. And based on the reviews that I've seen on Amazon to this point, a lot of people have enjoyed it. And so, though I might break even on the project itself, just in terms of I laid out money for advanced review copies. I laid out money for the photos. I laid out money for paying for the cover illustration. And so the money that I'm making back, piece by piece, bit by bit, I'll break even. But the point of it for me was it was a passion project of mine, and I wanted, I thought people would like it and it would be something different. And that's what really drove me to write the book. Hope that answers your question a little.
I have a question.
Sure.
It's the name Ray Negron. Have you ever heard it? Do you know who he is?
Public relations for the Yankees, I believe.
You're right. He's a close friend of mine. You ought to look him up. You got a lot in common with that screwball.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I've been called better things and I've been called worse things than screwball, but okay.
Well, anyway, and you can tell him how you got his name from me, Dick Biley.
Okay, thank you.
And you can tell him that's what I said. Actually, I'd like to say worse, but there's probably some ladies on this line and I don't want to do that.
Okay.
It's a screwball. It's pretty good.
Anybody else?
No, jump in, my man.
Okay, Maxwell?
Yes, you mentioned Scipio Sphinx before, and which reminded me there have been 3 representatives of the Phoenician Wars, the Punic Wars,
Oh, man.
nomenclatural in Major League Baseball. You had Scipio Sphinx, Anibal Sanchez, Hannibal, and Asdrubal Cabrera, Asdrubal, his brother. Have you found that in any other historical context where you've had 2 or more people from some epoch in history show up on the diamond?
I can say no, I haven't. I am putting together names for the 2nd volume of this this poem, and I want to write about Asdrubal because I just love saying the name Asdrubal, and but I don't know of any such pattern or circumstance other than what you've just mentioned. No.
Hey, can you, I would like to ask a question.
Sure.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Cal
Okay.
McClish. What's Cal McClish's complete name?
Oh, Calvin McClish.
Tuscahoma. Oh God, it's got like 7 parts to it, and he got his name because his father was annoyed that he hadn't been able to name any of his prior children, so he just lumped them all together in one giant middle name for Cal McClish.
Calvin Coolidge, I think of Calvin Coolidge, Julius Caesar, Tuscahoma McClish.
There you go. And he was from Oklahoma, so that helped. Yes.
By the way, I've got one thing to add. Ray Negron's phone number, area code 727-424-6711.
Okay. Well, I'll think about calling him.
Wow.
Good.
Anybody else? All right. Marcia? Marcia wants to ask a question. Will somebody unmute Marcia? Marcia, can you unmute?
Top of the screen, Marcia, with your arrow.
There. Okay. I think it's wonderful that you just stayed with your passion and stayed with your idea and didn't let all these other negative things keep you from doing it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It took me quite a while to find my voice as a writer and find the niche I wanted to fill in terms of I could write the serious analytical stuff, you know, for like the Baseball Research Journal, but I enjoy the fun aspect of it, and the fun aspect for me was the interest in the player names and where they came from and how they got them and what do they mean. I have a very curious personality, and so that drove me to write the book. That was really sort of a stepping stone in terms of the crystallization of what I wanted to write about, and I'm glad I followed through on it. Thank you. Maxwell?
Even though you didn't get any help from Mr. Blanks, did you ever find out anything about the etymology of the name Larvell? Because I've actually looked this up on the internet and come up with nothing. I came up with Larvell Jones from Police Academy.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's all I've come up with. And that's why I wrote to them. I also wrote to John Walkenfuss because I was interested in the origin of than the last name Walkenfuss, and it's particular to a particular part of the country, depending on how you pronounce it and how you spell it. Unfortunately, Mr. Walkenfuss, I believe, is suffering from a deteriorating brain condition or dementia or something, so he couldn't respond to me. But Larbell Blanks was really interesting in that it took 7.5 months for him to respond, and when he did, it was a baseball card that I got back signed. So I never found out what Larbell really meant.
Thank you, DB. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your passion, and we appreciate you being with us today. And
thank you so much. I had a great time. If you want to order the book from me directly, it's dbfirstman@gmail.com. And for $20, you can PayPal me to dbfirstman@gmail.com. I will get you an autographed copy, postage free. Postage will be on me, and I'll get you a copy. Or you can go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon. And I really appreciate you having me on this evening. Thank you so much.
And again, the exact title is the book.
Look for Hall of Name. That's all you need. Hall of Name.
All of Name.
Hey, DB, I'm going to go ahead and chat that out to everybody. So what's your Gmail address again?
DB Firstman.
DB Firstman, just like at
gmail.com.
Okay.
At gmail.com, yes.
Okay, I sent it to everybody. Hopefully that's right.
Thank you. Yep, that's it. You got it.
Thank you, DB.
Thank you.
okay, we're going to move right along now. And we're really excited to have an individual who has been associated with baseball in Houston for a great number of years. He was the broadcaster for the Houston Astros on radio and TV. And more recently, he's worked for the Skeeters, and he's going to be on TV tomorrow night, to tell you the truth, to broadcast a game with the Skeeters. He lives here and in Arkansas, and he can tell us a little bit about his career and what's going on right now. So let me introduce Brett Dolan. Brett, you're muted.
That work?
There you go.
All right, we're having some wonderful weather here in Sugar Land, so I've switched from my computer to my tablet. So hopefully I'm off and rolling now. This has been the most interesting year, and I think probably any baseball fan, once they get to the end of 2020, if we're still alive and kicking, will probably say the same thing. But a couple of opportunities I've had this year that I'll share. Geoff Blum and I got a chance to be part of the first baseball event that came back. It was a 3-day, 6-game college baseball event in Bryan College Station in the first week of June, inside the bubble. And then most recently, the Skeeters have undertaken this 4-team league of minor leaguers, a few former major leaguers. Fernando Rodney is signed. We all remember Fernando, the relief pitcher, in addition to a few others. And they've actually been playing games with fans in the stands, 1,500-ish, maybe on some nights, wearing masks on the concourse. And we broadcasted 3 of the games already on AT&T Sportsnet, and tomorrow is our 4th. There is a rumor Roger Clemens will join us for several innings, so we'll see if that works out or not. But it has been a crazy year. My baseball broadcasting schedule starts on February 14th. So when you call the college games, you get in early. And I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on February 14th in a driving snowstorm after doing a basketball game the night before. And I was fortunate to get back to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and call a game the next day. And then a couple of weeks later, we were here at Minute Maid Park for the College Classic, which is truly probably the best college event there is going, with 9 games in 3 days. And I called 6 of the 9. And to do so, I was able to see my son in his senior baseball year play 4 games in the mornings. And I saw my daughter play a couple of games too. Little did I know that his senior season was about to end, and our college season of course, was about to end too. I missed calling a no-hitter on the first game Sunday with the Oklahoma pitcher, Dane Acker, but I got to see my daughter hit a triple instead. So that's the giveaway I got. I got to see her triple rather than to see a no-hitter. But we were off and rolling with what looked like maybe one of the more unique baseball seasons I've been a part of, and then everything came crashing down. And as a father of a 2020 grad and a baseball player, that was a bitter pill to swallow. We put so much, when I say we, there's no he, it's a we family thing when it comes to the amount of time and money we spend to put forth the opportunities for these kids, and to see it end was crushing. But this kicked in a couple of these events I've been a part of, and having lost a lot of work and a lot of opportunities, I will say it's been a lot of fun to be a part of these. And I'll take you to that Bryan College Station event because it was held the weekend that college baseball's regionals normally take place. We had 100-ish players from all across the country. We put together 4 teams and play games. And Geoff Blum and I sat there and called them on pay-per-view, scorching hot nights in Bryan College Station, and we loved it. I will say it's the best therapy I had in a long time to be back. And we broadcast games in front of no fans. We were in the bubble. We had the test taken multiple times with the nose swab so that we were clean, I guess, in order to be around the players and the coaches. But Blummer and I had the same thought the first night when we were calling games in front of no fans, which is what the broadcasters will have in the major league starting soon for the foreseeable future. It reminded both of us of a trip from Houston to Milwaukee, and Greg will remember this, and Bill and Tal will remember the same thing after the hurricane in 2008. And what was unusual is we took forever to get to the airport that day, the day of game, where we were playing a home game, if you remember, against the Cubs in Milwaukee. And we got to the airport after probably an hour-and-a-half drive of detours and floods, only to realize, other than the traveling party, there were only 4 more people in the entire Bush airport. And it was eerie, right? To walk down the airport, everything's closed. There's one plane. You didn't have to wait to take off. And it reminded both of us, Blummer and I, of that event and how strange it was with nobody in the airport. Of course, we got, as a team, we got to Milwaukee about 3 hours before the game. Our pitcher that night, the Astros pitcher, Randy Wolf, had carried his suitcase down 17 flights of stairs at his high-rise that did not have power. And he was pitching against a well-rested Carlos Zambrano. And if you remember, of course, all Zambrano did was throw a no-hitter against the Houston Astros that night. Our guys were a little bit out of sorts and out of whack and got no hit. I will say the Astros did extremely much better the next night when they got 1 hit against Ted Lilly of the 2008 chase for the wild card. There were fans there, but it was the uniqueness of that trip that made us kind of harken back when we were calling games in Bryan College Station. I'll share one thing with you though from that event. You know, I was so touched by these players, these college players. For many of these guys were hoping that this year would be the opportunity for them to get to the professional ranks. And this was before the draft was altered. A lot of these guys were hoping to be drafted late, maybe in the 35th round, maybe get an opportunity to go play baseball. And they watched their world come crashing down. Not only did they not have their senior season, then they had to make up the mind whether or not they would come back and pay for the right to play for a 5th year or a 6th year. And knowing that the draft was not going to be much more friendly next year. And to see them chasing this dream and chasing this goal of playing professional baseball and the obstacles they had to overcome. We were at the ballpark one night at midnight after a workout, and the vans were late to take the players back to the bubble. And this is normally the time when ball players are pretty good at complaining. And I talked to a couple of guys, and it was 100 degrees, and it was midnight. And I said, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, this isn't working well tonight, transportation. There's Robbie, named after Jackie Robinson, right there in the picture. Hi, Robbie. And some of the guys said to me, you know, if you leave the lights on, I'll stay out here all night. I'll take ground balls, I'll take batting practice. It meant that much to them to be able to be out there and play. And, you know, it's a great reminder, I think, how much people love this game, how much these young guys are truly chasing their dreams. And, you know, it was a fun event. the Skeeters event has been a little bit different because a lot of these guys have been released in the last couple of months. Roger Clemens was a big part of this league. He wanted to have a place for his boys to play. Casey, who's just been released by the Blue Jays. Cody, who's still with the Tigers. And so many other players that have had their careers possibly altered for good and trying to salvage something. So these guys are playing 28 games over 56 days. We're playing with fans in the stands. We're playing for an opportunity for these guys to showcase themselves maybe when this chaos is over to get back to a minor league job. So it's been unique in that regard to see these guys playing truly for a love of the game too, and to try and keep their careers going. I will say some of these guys are probably on the back end of a minor league career, maybe at that AA level. A few others have been able to get permission from their major league teams to play in order to be able to get some at-bats. Trei Cruz is in the league, so it's been fun to see Jose Cruz Jr. and Cheo out at the games from time to time. There are plenty of guys with big league fathers, whether it's Connor Capel or Mike Capel, whether it's the two Clemens boys that are playing. Todd Haney is part of the league as a coach. Shane Reynolds' son is playing on the Texas team. So there's no shortage of Astros. Greg Swindell is one of the head coaches. So it feels like there are plenty of guys that are around the game that are doing this really just to provide an opportunity for players to be able to continue to play. You know, Tal's been around this for a long time, and he knows what these minor league systems have looked like back in the day, and it'll look a lot different probably in 2021. So it's hard not to root for some of these guys as they're chasing their dream. And for me as a broadcaster, what has been fun is that both of these events we've been on site. We have been there. I guess we've lived to tell about it to this point. Whether we're still living when we're done, I don't know. Whether it was the games we called in the bubble in College Station with the college players, or on site at Constellation Field for these minor leaguers. It's going to be very unique for my major league brethren this year, calling games from an empty stadium, whether they're at home or calling a road game from the home stadium as well, and how they navigate crowd noise and seeing the sights and what they're trying to relay to the viewers. We've been fortunate. We've been able to do it on site. So I promote that whenever I can because I think there is a road to doing this. Like everybody else, I have no clue how, when, and if this virus situation is going to end. But I guess we're left with two alternatives in the sporting world. We can shutter up the doors and wait, or we can try and work around it. And I've been fortunate, I guess, to be a part of a couple of events that have done their best to navigate through this craziness and this chaos. So I hope it works out for the Skeeters. Having fans in the stands is different. It makes me wonder why maybe the Astros at some point can't put 5,000 fans in or 6,000 fans, or whether they just don't want to deal with that right now. But the funny story I'll share with you is I met somebody at the ballpark Saturday night. He had been watching our telecast on AT&T Sportsnet, and he was flipping around the previous night, and he was watching for about a half an hour. And he said, at some point, I realized there were fans wearing masks in the stands. And he said, this is live. This is real. Every game I've watched for the last 2 months has been a replay from the game from 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And it just struck him as odd that there was live baseball going on. There were fans in the stands. And I guess that spoke to the uniqueness of 2020. So he had to come out the next night to see a game in person because he thought, is it really possible that some of this has come back in a time frame where we as fans could watch it on TV or watch it in person? So it has been unique. I would say that, to say the least. I hope that we're able to get our game off tomorrow with Roger Clemens and then do it again on Thursday. And the league will continue. We'll lose our opportunity on AT&T Sportsnet because they will have bigger and better things to televise soon once the Houston Astros season gets back and rolling. And I'll be anxious to see that as well. But from starting my season on February 14th, leaving a snowstorm, to trying to see my college-bound son play some high school games, to some of these events in College Station, and of course now in Constellation Field, I will say it has been bizarre, and it has been crazy. But somehow we've been able to watch some baseball, and truly that has been the best therapy for me. Watching so much chaos in this world, to be able to see some games, see them in person, and root for some guys to hopefully go on and make the most of this year. and put themselves in a position next year, whether it's playing again at the college level or playing at the minor league level, or maybe for some at the major league level. This will have all been worth it for them just to get some playing time. My cat keeps jumping on me, so he must want me to talk some baseball. So if someone has a thought that they want to share, or talk a little ball about the craziness this year, be glad to do so.
I have a question about, you brought up Bud Selig in that game with Zambrano. It's why we all Astro fans love Bud so much. How were the players on that trip? I mean, it seemed like their mind couldn't have been on the game, which would help explain the no-hitter. Zambrano had nasty stuff that year, but.
Yeah, you were right. They were subdued. For some, they had no power. Others, they were leaving their families behind, and we were on a road trip through Milwaukee and then to Miami. So I think there was a lot of unknowns. My power in Sugar Land came back right before I left. For others that were up north in the Woodlands or thereabouts, they didn't have power for the better part of a week, if not more. So there was a lot of concern. And, you know, ball players are creatures of routine, and Greg probably remembers this too. Normally you're in the city the night before. You don't usually arrive at 3 o'clock for a 6 o'clock game, or you have to make the decision whether you're just going straight to the ballpark or you're going to drop your suitcase off at your hotel. So these guys were, as you could imagine, distracted and not quite into it. And then Zambrano comes out throwing BBs that night and no hits the team. And as Lance Berkman said so eloquently after the game that night, he goes, "I can't believe our fans so lustily cheered for the Cubs in our home game," because it was all Cubs fans that were there. And the next night, I mean, it was pretty close. I think Mark Loretta had a single to right field off Ted Lilly, and that was it. So 2 games, 1 hit, 2 losses. And after that amazing run with Ty Wigginton playing left field, Carlos Lee injured, the team looked like they had a great chance to get to the playoffs. Those 2 games pretty much shot the team right down the drain.
And they were shot down, as you recall, from that point on until the resurgence, because that was really the last team that they had before 2015 that still had some kind of a chance to win until they went to Milwaukee.
That's exactly right. It just felt like the wind came out of the sails, so to speak, and they went down to Miami, and it was not a pleasant circumstance. And I will say, you know, when teams have their years basically end because of games, it doesn't come with quite the story that does, playing 2 home games against the Cubs in Milwaukee and getting 1 hit, but it was a difficult stretch.
May I ask you a question personally about how you're handling, because you've been doing it now for several years, this Arkansas Sugar Land combo? I mean, what is your normal situation during the course of a school year?
It's crazy. I know the 9.5-hour drive well, if I don't stop at Buc-ee's a couple of times. So it's a little bit bizarre. Sometimes I spend as much as 3 months in Arkansas without coming home. And in a normal fall, I would be just about ready to do that, because I'm there Monday through Friday. I'm leaving to do a football game. I'm calling a football game someplace on a Saturday, coming back on a Sunday to Arkansas and doing the same thing all over. And then once basketball season hits, we get the overlap of February is basketball / baseball / softball, and that goes through March or April. So I have spent more time in Texas than I have in a long time, and I appreciate that fact because I've been working from home, which I can do here as well as Bud Walton Arena. But there was one time, Greg, after that college classic, I got to see my kid play 4 times. And again, I'm thankful I did this. He had games the next Wednesday and Thursday. I came back. I watched him play 2 games. I left at 9 o'clock at night. I drove through the night. I got back at 6 a.m. I went to work at 9 as if nothing had happened. So I've done that a few crazy times just to try and see whatever I could and be around some games. And had I been back in my office this last week on Tuesday, I was going to drive straight through the night to Arkansas, get back at 8 a.m., go to work for 2 days, drive back through the night to call a game last Friday. But I've been saved from that. I didn't have to do that. So,
do you keep an apartment there?
I do.
You do. Well,
I
that helps. Yeah. Well, and I also know that you don't call it what it was called back in the days that we were working in the Southwest Conference. This will date us, but there were people around here that called going to, well, let's say Vietnam, it was called. because of that drive that you have to take around the mountains and the hills, and driving a big TV truck made a couple of guys age quite a bit every time they had to go.
I have no doubt. It's a lengthy drive. I've gotten to see more of Oklahoma than I ever hoped to get a chance to see again in all the small towns that I passed through. I will say this, though, and Greg, I know you appreciate baseball at all levels. The one thing for me is being around that Arkansas baseball program the last few years has been amazing. They had a chance to go to the World Series for the third straight year this year. I think they would have made it. During an SEC weekend series, they'll have 33 to 35,000 fans there. They have an indoor facility. They're building 40-some suites. And there were times, I don't think I'm discounting the system. Back in our days when we worked together, people would tell us that the Corpus team maybe had one or two prospects that could possibly play at the big league level back then. I'm watching SEC series when I'm looking out there saying there's 8 or 9 guys that are going to make the big leagues between these two teams. It's that good of caliber of play. It's better than some of the poor major league systems. So I've been blessed in that regard to be able to see some high caliber baseball, but I've missed an awful lot of Sugar Land and Houston and what's going on around here.
I'll ask a silly question, but I saw on the last game you televised, Greg Swindell was the skipper of the Texas team, and he was having a real problem with spitting. He spit 5 times in 30 seconds. Just a habit, I'm sure. But is there a penalty? I know they not supposed to do it, but is there a penalty for doing that? Do you know?
I don't think there is. I mean, there's a lot of guys that'll still wear the masks in the dugout if they're not playing. They've had several players wear masks in the outfield and the home plate area when they're batting. The first 2 games we did, the feels like temperature was 109 degrees. So I don't know what it feels like to wear a black mask when it feels like 109 outside. Each of our first 2 games, we had 2 pitchers suffer heat stroke, and we basically had to drag them off the mound. They couldn't, their hands, they were that. The California kids that came to Texas to play some baseball that weren't quite used to the July heat. But there aren't near as many of the restrictions that you see for the major leagues for their 40-page guideline. I don't know if the major league guys will be able to even know what half of those are or follow those. So it's probably been a little looser in that regard as far as the no spitting or the no sunflower seeds. It's a little bit weird, though. They have 2 clubhouses for 4 teams. So when a game is over, the guys go straight to their hotel. They don't shower on site. There's a few other things that are a little bit unique. I don't think they serve them any food there. And they're just doing their best to try and navigate through this without having to go through the expensive protocols that Major League Baseball has put forth. So it's been a little bit different, to say the least.
I have a question, a comment. We had Deacon Jones on, and he was talking about what the enthusiasm was for that, call it the Coronavirus League there of the Skeeters, that so many players, and he was fielding a lot of applicants just over the phone before they actually let him come to tryouts. And all the players stay at the Marriott over at the town square. They've got them 2 to a room, and the Marriott's kind of empty, so they're getting it for $60 a night for 2 people, and they're kind of quarantined together. And I watched a little bit that Toronto pitcher that Monday night that the Skeeters hit for the Cyclone that 1 inning, and you got mentioned because you caught a foul ball. But I'd mentioned to Bob that I saw a difference in the balls, and I went out there and I got lucky to get one. They hit one in my section. So I wanted to share the difference in the ball and see if you noticed it in the Coronavirus League with the group here tonight. So here is a regular baseball from, let me see if I can get that. Yeah, so that's a National League Baseball. So then I got the one from the Coronavirus League, and I want to hand it up so y'all can compare it and see if you can see the difference. Can you see? That's an actual. Did you notice that when you caught it, Brett?
I did not notice that, as a matter of fact. I wish I had my I don't know, maybe I can find this with a picture real quick. There was, in the college league in Bryan College Station, everybody wore the same hat. And some were different colors, blue or red, but it had a logo on there. I'm going to find it yet. Maybe you can see it. I don't know if you can see that. But it is the baseball that is a Corona baseball. That was their logo. So it's got the same thing. It's got the spikes on the yours is in real life. This is just a 3D image. That'll be a keepsake. That baseball will be one too. I think you want to see if you can get that autograph between the golf tees.
Hey, Brett, do you have any insight as to how they got that name, Lightning Sloth?
There's something that they use for a rally sloth of some sort. So I think they put their heads together and came up with something unique. So they're called the Sugarland Lightning Sloth. So they're wearing the Sugarland Skeeters alternate uniform with their own logo. It is kind of creative. I will say that. I may have to get myself a hat or a t-shirt at some point, but I think it's a takeoff from their rally sloth that is now a lightning sloth. But it is different. One of the other teams they have is the Reyes del Tigre, the Tiger Kings, and they're actually using uniforms that were supposed to be part of an all-star game for the Midwest League Eastern. So that's the Eastern part, because they were able to get them for free because there was no need for them for the Midwest League All-Star game that will never take place.
Thanks. That will see other teams named sloths.
Well, it's a lot to say too in the middle of a big highlight, the Lightning Sloths,
Yeah.
but it doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. It's fun having Greg Swindell part of that league too, though. Greg hasn't, he never worked in the minor leagues as far as I know after his playing career is over, but Pete Incaviglia and Roger Clemens put him to work, so he's having a good time. And to show you the uniqueness of this league, I was out there last night. They play 7-inning games for doubleheaders, and then when they have the single game, it's 9 innings. So the first game of the doubleheader last night, they had a no-hitter, the first no-hitter in the ballpark's history. The second game was tied after 7 innings. So their tiebreaker is a home run derby, and that's how they decide the winner. In our event in College Station, of the 6 games Blummer and I called, we had 3 extra inning games. And the first one, we did an international tiebreaker where we put runners at second and third, I think, with nobody out, and that's how we played it. And the next 2 nights, we went straight to a home run derby with LaTroy Hawkins pitching. So I guess if ever there was a year to experiment and have some fun and not burn your bullpens up, this has been it. And I've seen a little bit of everything from the international tiebreakers to the home run derbies and even one yesterday too. So I guess they're getting creative on how not to use 10 pitchers in a game or play for 5 hours.
Any other questions for Brett? Wow. Sam. Sam, we can't hear you. There you
Just
go.
thumbs up. I enjoyed the presentation. Thumbs up for it.
Thank you.
Did good.
Brett, are you calling Arkansas football games or just baseball and basketball?
I do baseball, softball, basketball, volleyball, the occasional gymnastics. Please don't listen. I have no clue what they're doing. I just try and get through it as best I can. Football, I'm fortunate to do a national radio game every week, and I think I'm a little bit, maybe I'm biased. I felt like we had the best schedule going. My last game last year was Alabama-Auburn. We had Wisconsin at Ohio State. We had Utah at Washington. We had Texas A&M at Clemson. So if we don't play college football this year, I'm going to miss it because those are the highest profile games I do, and it's a lot of travel. But I work with Gino Torretta, the 1992 Heisman Trophy winner out of Miami, and we have a pretty good time traveling the country, going to a different conference every year. So it gets me away from seeing Arkansas football, and I get to see some pretty good games. But well, I'm crossing my fingers we play because I'm not sure economically how college sports survives without it.
Hey, Brett, Chris Marullo here. I was your producer along with the great Bob Elliott at KTRH, about 10 or 12 years ago. Just want to say, hey, enjoyed producing the games with you, Dave, and Milo. And if you don't mind, I'd share a memory of the night of Biggio's 3,000th hit. It was one of Milo's off innings. And I remember what he got several hits that night, and we really weren't expecting him to do it that night. But it was one of Milo's off innings, and I just remember you and I can't remember who was on play-by-play and who was doing. You were doing play-by, and you guys brought Milo on board to make sure that he got to do the call. And I remember just how touched he was with that.
It means a lot to me, Chris, that you remember that, and that it touches me too. You know, we had looked for guidance from our bosses at the time, and I said, what do we do, right? I mean, Milo should call this, and there's Ken Griffey wanted Marty Brenneman on for his home runs, and he made it known, and we were just kind of looking for a little bit of guidance, and no one would say anything. And the day that series started with Colorado, I called Milo and I said, you know, if he gets to 2.999 and I'm calling the inning, you need to come in and do it. I don't think we expected it to be that night. And sure enough, in the 7th inning, there he came. And I know it meant a lot to him, but it felt like the right thing to do. And for me, I got to do, you know, being in the booth, rarely do you just turn your mic off and be a spectator, but I got to do so that night because just watching that great moment, which is still one of the highlights for me, even though I didn't have much of a role in it, but I still have, I'll show this to you, I still have the Craig Biggio jersey that hangs in my office with a picture of me interviewing him right there.
All right.
Clemens is over here someplace, and Nolan Ryan and Ryan Sandberg are next door, but it was quite a night, and I know it was replayed, I think, not that long ago on 790 maybe. But I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, it was a Friday night. He had 297, and he went 5 for 5 that night, and Carlos Lee won the game with a walk-off grand slam, extra inning.
I remember Carlos walking into the clubhouse and saying, I hit a walk-off grand slam and I'm not the player of the game. And he was saying that tongue in cheek. It's pretty hard to hit a walk-off grand slam and to be shown up, but Craig found a way to do it. And, you know, that was, it was an incredible night. I thought Milo had a great call and Brownie had a great call too. So the two guys that needed to be calling it put their signatures on, you know, one of the top 5 moments in the franchise's history.
That was either the first walk-off grand slam or the only one in Astro history. I can't remember.
Is that right? Funny part was Craig, the night he announced his retirement, I did an interview with him pregame for some reason. And I did it in the media room, and his family members circled. It was the only interview I've ever done where his wife and his kids were sitting there the entire time. And then Craig went out and hit, he might have hit a grand slam that night. I know he hit a home run. And he was my post-game interview from the dugout at Minute Maid. And it was just him and I. And that's the picture that's enclosed in that autographed jersey. And I don't know if I ever had a night where I interviewed somebody for the pregame show and postgame show. But pregame, it was because he announced his retirement. Postgame is because he hit a big home run. And that's one of those days I won't forget either.
Oh, Brett?
Donnie?
Yeah. What's happening with the minor leagues next year?
Well, they're going to eliminate 40 teams. And a lot of that may be some short season teams. So if you do the math, that's what, 1,200 jobs, I guess it would be around baseball. They're going to take some of the independent teams, or they're going to take some of the teams that will no longer be short season clubs and possibly turn them into something called a dream league, which would be for non-drafted players, those that would not be paid by a major league organization that could possibly do well enough to join the affiliated ranks. But where it really gets goofy is they are going to possibly take AAA teams and turn them into Class A teams. And A-ball teams will be AAA teams based on geography. So from someone who spent 12 years in the minors and was proud to work in AAA, there could be a Fresno team that's AAA or Sacramento, and they're going to say, well, the West Coast teams are now A-ball teams. And Dayton in Class A is now going to be a AAA team, and it's going to be chaotic. There was a big article written on baseballamerica.com today about how really at this point no one knows anything. The uniqueness of this story is after they cut 40 teams, there has been rumors of them possibly adding 2. And the 2 that seem to be rumored are St. Paul and Sugar Land. So I don't know if there's a possibility that Sugar Land would become a AAA affiliate of the Houston Astros going forward. And then what that would do to Round Rock. The player contracts, the PDCs, the 2- and 4-year deals with the respective teams would go out the window. The minor league baseball organization that oversees minor league baseball may just be blown up. And basically Major League Baseball will take over minor leagues, eliminate 40 teams, and restructure everything. So for a lot of these minor league teams that are probably completely devoid of revenue all year and not knowing what the economic future holds, they also don't know exactly what their structure with the major leagues is going to be. So stay tuned to that, but it's going to be maybe the biggest shift in minor league baseball in decades.
Brett, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's been a real thrill to have you. It's good to hear your voice after all those years with the Astros, and we've enjoyed our relationship. You know, Brett was the MC for one of our banquets over at Sugar Land, and did a great job. So, Brett, we thank you for all you've done and wish you well.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm going to shift gears. Tony, you're already ready. We have come quite a ways with our newsletter. And as you all know, Tony is our editor. And we had an editorial board meeting before this conference call today. And we're certainly hoping that we'll be able to publish our newsletter, which is going to be a summer newsletter, hopefully by the end of this month. And Tony, you want to bring people up to date a little bit?
Hi, Bob. I feel like I'm in a Hitchcock movie.
I'm still hearing you.
Yeah. We have plenty of articles to print. We have columns from Greg Lucas, Mike Vance, Cal Smith, Bob Dorrell will give us the president's page, and Bill Brown, and we think we may have something from Bill McCurdy, and it will be a quarterly, at least 6 pages, and we have plenty of material to print. I think you will really be pleased by it. Scott McKay and his wife have done an outstanding job in layout, and it's really professionally done. So keep tuned. It's going to be pretty good. I know my audio is really bad here, so I'll with Bob's permission, I'll just cut off my participation right there.
I want to thank Bob Stevens, whose son Matthew designed the logo for the front page, and we have Megan Kronsky, who delivered who came up with another beautiful logo. So we're going to use both of them, and it's amazing to me the talent that we have in this chapter. It's just, and you ask, and people step forward and contribute. We know we have a lot of knowledgeable baseball people, but we have a lot of great writers. In fact, I listed my column about how many folks from this chapter have written books. And it's about 12 people over time have written books from this chapter, baseball books. And they've all been very well received. We have a couple of people right now who are working on books. Bill Brown for one, and Greg Lucas for another. And it's just marvelous the way folks have chipped in and participated. We welcome any contributions that anyone wants to make about any subject baseball, of course, that you'd like to contribute. We are going to try to use some of Bill McCurdy's blogs. He's written some great blogs, only 3,000, some that he wrote. And and Mike McCroskey's going through some of those right now and determine which ones will be appropriate for each issue. But we welcome. Marcia also has got a column where she's writing up recaps of the meetings that we've had in the past. Right now we have a very serious presentation from Maxwell Cates on Justin Verlander. And it should be very exciting, and we hope that you all will enjoy it and feel like you want to contribute. And we thank the editorial board and Tony in particular for helping put this together. Mr. McCroskey has a comment to make. Mike, can't hear you.
There we go. And I'm proud to announce that our newsletter does have a name, which hasn't been mentioned yet. It's the Houston Baseball Shooting Star Express. Houston Baseball put on there for people Googling Houston Baseball, and Bob hopes we get new members from this. The Shooting Star from the Astros 75 uniforms, 65, their initial uniforms with the Shooting Star across it, and the star still incorporated in their logo. And the Express for the train at Minute Maid Park, for Newspaper Express, and for Nolan Ryan. And that's how the name came up. Yeah, Tom?
Will this be sent out in written form, or is this a electronic printout, or how will we be able to read it?
Scott? Tony?
Well, as I think most of it's going to be published on the website, the Facebook page, but I think we're also going to send it out by email, and it'll be a PDF attached to an email.
That's right. Very good. Thank you.
We've had a lot of collaboration from our people, and we're just so very thankful. Scott stepped up for the leadership as far as he and his wife putting the newsletter together. And I think you'll be proud of our efforts. And we hope to have the first issue out, like I said, by the end of the month. Okay. Any comments, questions before we talk about trivia? Having heard none. Scott, where are you?
I'm up here. We've seen a lot in the news lately, especially with the Washington Redskins changing their names and the Indians potentially changing their name. So I thought I would do franchise names for trivia. So we've got 10 questions for those of y'all playing, with some of them multiple answers. So probably in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 total possible answers in this trivia. I'll get everybody a minute or two to get their paper and pens ready.
25?
Yeah, 20 to 25, but only 10 questions. Okay, are we ready to go? Got a thumbs up or?
Go for it.
Go for it. All right, we'll start with the easy one, number one. Hopefully this is a layup for everybody. Before the Astros were the Astros, what were they? Okay, number two, as hopefully most everybody knows, the Atlanta Braves were once the Milwaukee Braves and the Boston Braves. But they also had 4 other nicknames that they were known as before they were the Braves. You get a point for any of those that you can name. Okay, number 3. What were the current Milwaukee Brewers before they were the Brewers? Okay, number 4. The Dodgers, of course, have been in LA and Brooklyn. They have gone by actually 6 other nicknames. You get 1 point for any of those that you can name. All right, number 5. The aforementioned Indians have gone by 3 other names. 1 point for each one of those that you can name. And who knows, maybe they'll choose one of these 3 if they decide to change their name. Okay, number 6. The current Washington Nationals. What were they before they were the Nationals? Okay, number 7. What were the Baltimore Orioles before they were the Orioles? There's 2 possible answers there.
It's hot out.
Yes.
That is that.
Yes. Okay, number 8. The Cincinnati Reds have gone by 2 other names. 1 point if you can name either of those. Okay. Number 9. The current Minnesota Twins were what before they were the Twins? And finally, number 10. What were the Yankees before they were the Yankees? Okay,
Right.
does anybody need anything repeated?
How many names for the Yankees? Just 1?
Just 1.
Got it.
Robert Beck got all of them.
No?
And I just let everybody know I did look these up. I did not know these off the top of my head.
Tom White would have known all 3 of the Clevelands, I guarantee you. Being a Cleveland boy.
Okay, anybody need anything repeated or you want to go ahead with answers?
Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead. Okay, well, number 1, this is the gimme. The Astros were what before they were the Astros?
45.
45.
Yep, there we go. Colt 45s. Easy enough. Okay, so number 2, the Boston Braves. See how many of those nicknames y'all might recall.
Bean Eaters?
That's 1.
The Bees.
The Bees would be another one.
We say bean eaters.
Bean Eaters
Eaters
is 1.
Doves.
Actually, well, close. One was the Doves, of all things. And then we had the, looks like the Red Stockings. So it was another one. and wrestlers, if there was actually a fifth one. Okay, so number 3 is actually easy if you remember where the Brewers were before they were the Brewers.
Seattle.
Seattle Pilots.
Yeah, that would be the Pilots. That is correct. Okay, number 4, what were the Dodgers?
Robins?
When they weren't the Dodgers.
Robins and Trolley Dodgers.
Robins was one.
Trolley Dodgers.
Bridegrooms.
Bridegrooms is another one.
Atlantics.
The Atlantics is number 3.
Superbus.
That would be number 4.
Which was that?
Superbus.
Who said that? Who said that?
What was the answer?
Oh, okay, Chris.
So those are 4 of them. So what I've heard is Robin, Superbus, Bridegrooms, and Atlantis. They've also been known as the Grays. And I can't even read the 6th one. I can't even read my own handwriting. So I'm going to skip
Weren't they the Trolley Dodgers before they were shortened to Dodgers?
I did not see. I actually looked all these up on Baseball Reference, and they did not have that in there. So I'm not disputing that fact, but not something that I saw.
Well, I got one then.
Okay, number 5, the Indians. What were they before they were the Indians?
The Naps.
The Naps would be 1.
Spiders.
Wahoos?
That would be 2.
Spiders.
That would be a different franchise. Spiders went defunct. They were, yeah.
Weren't the Molly McGuires one of their names?
Didn't say that. I see the Blues as the 3rd one. I did not see any of the other ones on Baseball Reference. Okay, number 6 should be a gimme. The Washington Nationals were what before they were the Nationals?
Expos.
That would be the Expos. That's correct. Okay, number 7. What were the Baltimore Orioles before they were the Baltimore Orioles?
St. Louis Browns.
They were the
Milwaukee
St.
Brewers.
Louis Browns.
Milwaukee Brewers, too.
They were, so that would be either one. So Browns and Brewers.
Huh.
Okay, number 8. That is the Reds.
Red legs.
Red legs. Red stockings.
The
Red legs, red
legs,
stockings.
Red legs and red stockings is correct. So there's 2 answers.
All right.
Number 9, the Twins were the what?
Senators.
That was the Senators. That is correct. And number 10, the Yankees were the
Highlanders.
They were the Highlanders. That is it. That is your quiz.
Orioles.
So that completes your quiz. So let's see who gets to do next month. Take it off my hands.
I got 8 out of 10. Not really. 8 out of 25.
I got 11.
13.
13.
I got 12. So obviously less than that.
Hal,
18.
how many did you get?
Oh, you're fine.
Robert, how many did you get?
9.
Oh.
So 13 is the high I've heard so far.
18.
There you
Oh,
go.
never mind.
18.
Okay.
The winner.
I have 15, but not 18.
25.
Did you Google those, Maxwell?
No. Herb Stempel whispered them to me from the isolation booth. The guy with the face for radio.
I love it. Okay, congratulations, Maxwell.
Thank you. So I'm doing the trivia next month.
Hey,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sounds good.
I want to congratulate this particular quiz though, because it was doable. Didn't take, nobody got 25, whatever the maximum was, but you could get 8 or 10. And some of our questions in the past have been a bit obscure, and these were much more fair.
Oh, thank you.
Was a good quiz. I concur. Except for that Cleveland question.
Okay, anyway, our next meeting will be, I don't screw it up, August 17th. And we have 2 speakers lined up, just to let you know, tease you a little bit. One will be Tom Stone, who has written a book about out taking the field. And we have Chris Gross, who's the director of amateur scouting for the Houston Astros. Thanks to Mike. So we have 2 speakers right now. We'll come back. We know about it. And we have Maxwell doing the.
Actually, that amateur scouting guy will be very interesting with all the changes that Brett was alluding to that I'm sure Tal will be mentioning in a piece he's written in baseball with the amateurs. That's going to change a lot with all the fewer draft picks, fewer minor league clubs. Amateur scouting will be interesting to hear what he has to say.
And we hope we still have a season going by that time.
Well, we hope the teams are still using amateur scouts by that time.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
I think it's interesting about the Skeeters possibly being the AAA club. When they built that park, there's a minimum number of seats you have to be a AAA club, but they built it so they could expand it. And I don't know what's going on with it other than there is discussion.
Well, it's been mentioned, Sugar Land and, as he indicated, St. Paul have both been mentioned as former independent teams that might be moving up. You're right. That would be interesting how that would work out. And the other thing that there was a story today that indicates the National Association's contract with Major League Baseball expires at the end of this year. So even though some of the teams have longer contracts with Major League affiliates, those contracts would be moot if, in fact, Major League Baseball and the people that run minor league baseball do not re-up, and they may not. So we'll see.
There was
Tony, you're muted again. I was kind of interested in Brett's comments about Sugar Land being a AAA team, and what does that mean to Round Rock? We all know who owns Round Rock, and apparently there's been a little mixed feelings back and forth about between our owner and the owner of the Round Rock Express.
Well, at one point, remember, Jim Crane wanted to buy, he wanted to put a AAA club in what, Conroe or the Woodlands or something that he was going to buy. So if he got involved with the current ownership of Sugar Land and bought that operation, or at least bought part of it, that would make sense for him.
The tough part is going to be San Antonio, because San Antonio just became a AAA team, but they're trying to geographically base these teams. So if Sugar Land gets in and Round Rock maybe goes to the Rangers, the San Antonio club could go back to AA after being AAA for a year, which would seem like be somewhat unfair, but the whole thing isn't exactly fair.
Well, the question I had is, so if we have more teams that are unaffiliated, if a major league team signs a player, like say Scott Cashmere was signed from Sugar Land, is Sugar Land also compensated for that, or is the player just signed outright? You know, because like you think of the old days where like DiMaggio was signed from the Seals and things like that. The Seals were actually compensated. Is that still the case, or is it just player via the major league team?
If it is, it's nominal.
If they just buy out of his contract, and as Brett knows, when these guys are playing at Sugar Land, they weren't being paid much, so their contracts weren't very much.
Greg, while we're talking, what did you hear from Ira? Did you hear anything from Ira?
Not lately. he would have been nice to have had him join us on this one since Brett was going to be on, but I didn't think to suggest that. He's just waiting for the next hockey season. He's been trying to make his presence known to the people that run the AAA club there with the Braves, but that's just that's just so they know he's around and he knows what he can do, and he's volunteered to be an emergency guy if they ever need one. But of course they aren't playing any this year, so he's not getting any chance to do anything in baseball.
Okay, guys, that's all we have unless somebody, oh, Mike, excuse me, you did have something you wanted to say. Apologize. Mike. Koski.
Oh, I worked it into Brett's interview. This is the only Corona ball I know in existence.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure you have that chance.
Hey, Bob, I do have something.
Yeah.
Hey, if anybody wants to go back and watch any of those, SABR did their virtual convention or all the presentations that would have happened at Baltimore. They did them online, but if anybody wants to go back and watch some of them, they've been doing them for the last couple of days and weekends. I can send out the links, or you can go to SABR's website and look up their virtual calendar, and all of those are being replayed on YouTube. So if you want to watch any of them, I've watched a couple. They're pretty good. So
I do have a question. This meeting is being recorded, right?
Yes, sir. Especially
so where
you.
does it get played?
What's that?
Where does it get viewed if anybody wanted to see it again or missed the meeting tonight?
It's going directly to the federal government.
Well, once we clean it up a little bit, we then put a beginning and an ending. I try to upload it onto the our own SABR Houston YouTube video page, and then people can go back and watch it. Which I've done that for the last 2 meetings. So there is a SABR Houston video YouTube page if you want to go back and watch some of those.
But they're available now, then, huh?
Yes, they're available now. Usually about a week after this.
Commercial free?
Commercial free, sir. And online. So if you want to watch the Deacon meeting, you can see that. And if you want to watch the meeting last month with the meeting last month.
Stanton.
Yes, sir. Mike Stanton. Wow. Mike Stanton, it's up there now.
Mike, you better get that ball, patent it.
Yeah.
I'm working on the glove to catch it.
By the way, there are 4 more of those virtual SABR sessions starting Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and Sunday afternoon. You just go to SABR.org and sign up for them.
What was that, Herb? I couldn't hear you.
There's still 4 more sessions of the SABR virtual convention starting Thursday night. They're 2-hour sessions. It's also Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and Sunday afternoon. So you can sign up for each session individually, and so far they've been pretty good. I've attended 3 of them myself.
And you think we have a lot of people on these meetings, those sessions have about 110, 120 people on them at the same time. Quite a few more.
Yeah, we had over 200 at the annual SABR meeting last Saturday. I mean, it was just, 6 or 7 different screens full of people.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Bob. Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Brett.
Y'all take
Thanks,
care.
Bob.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Bye.